Hello everyone, this is Carol from Creative Thoughts. I'm back with you today to share something that I have made recently and have been asked to do a video to show you exactly how I did this. I'm going to call this a creative tip episode because I'm not actually doing a craft with you, but I'm showing you step by step how I did it and exactly what I did. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me or leave it in the space below so that I can answer your questions, and I always check to make sure that I can get back to you. These are CD envelopes that I have made myself, and they have you can see, they have a journaling card inside. On this one I have added lace, and most of them I have done plain, but I always put lined paper on the back of my journaling cards or tags that I put inside of my journals so you can see. Now I made these, this one is from Ephemera's Vintage Garden, as is this one. And this one you can see I put no lace. It's very plain, but it serves the purpose of what the card will be. You could also put other things in these also, not necessarily. This one is from, I believe, Studio 28E. And these are all images that I had left over from projects that I have done and journals I have made. So let's get started. First of all, I took a regular CD envelope that you find your CDs come in, and I very carefully took it apart so I could get a template because this is the size that I wanted. I used 110 pound cardstock for this. I laid it on the cardstock, drew around it, cut it out, and here is my template. And I did the lines here. This is so easy to see where to fold it once you get it done, but it does work very well. Then I take a 12 by 12 sheet of paper. This is just scrapbooking paper that I had in my stash, and I lay it down, draw around it, and then cut it out. And this is what you get. Now, this is regular scrapbook paper. It has just a plain old white side. This one is double-sided cardstock, which I prefer to use, but I like to use up my paper, so I will show you how to line that. And this one will be this side I will use. This will be the inside. And you don't have to put a liner here when you use the double-sided paper. So you might keep that in mind when you're choosing which type of paper or cardstock that you want to use. Now, this is what you're going to end up with after you've cut it out and you fold it. Now, when you are folding this, I usually just fold it by hand. I do not use the score pad for regular paper. I did that and I learned the hard way. It tore the paper because I got a little too heavy-handed on it, and it's so easy to do when you're using regular paper. So I would suggest with regular paper, just fold it by hand, and it's very easy to do. I would do the sides first to make sure you get the sides even here, because these are a little off, if you will notice, and you'll want that to be, or I do, even on both sides. Now, the other thing that I do is I use my oval punch here, and I put this in here, and I actually do a little cutout there so that you, just like an envelope would be. I won't do that one because it's not lined yet, but that is how I get this little cutout in it. And I like the oval better than the circle. I learned that one from Deli Girl. Okay, now to line this, I first I made another template, and that is this one. And if you will notice, that is, I made a separate one. It is the bottom part of this actual template. So I cut that out, and then I use that to cut out the template for the paper that I want to use. And I am going to show you, I'll show you that in just a moment here. I put that on here. Now, let me show you what happens. Then I take my die, and I have used a scallop die in here. I don't have just a plain circle. I probably would prefer the plain circle, but because it's a little more difficult when you start gluing. I have used this Scotch, it's removable matte finish tape, and it's wonderful to use when you want to tape things down. I'm sure many of you already use that or have used it or seen it, but if you haven't, that's what I use to keep my die in place when I run it through my die cutting machine. Then when you cut this out though, you want to make sure that you fold it all out, and you put these flaps this way over the die. Otherwise you'll be cutting that out, the little scallops inside your flaps, and you don't want those there. Then you end up with this pretty little circle. I've got several of them, and there's different things, lots of different things you can do with those. So I keep those, of course, to use for other journals and other tags. Now, I have my cutout piece here in the middle, and then I have cut out my liner. I took a coordinating paper, cut that out, and I glue it. I use a glue stick for that, just glue it all over with the glue stick. And this is also the place where you want to edge your papers with ink. I do vintage photo all around the edges to age that a little bit. As you see on these, I have done that, and I've done that right here at this stage, so you can get both sides well. Then when you fold this over, there you have your liner. And there is your envelope. Now, to put the window in, I have used, for the window, I made my own template. This is 4 3/4 by 4 3/4, and this is a heavier acetate that I've used. Sometimes when you buy your different things that are packaged, they'll have the heavier acetate. Always save that because you can use it. Then for templates, and then I used cellophane from just a bag. These are from I had my old card making days. I had bags that I purchased that did not work, so I am using it for this. So I cut out a piece of cellophane from this template, and there's something else I use this for, so I'll tell you in a moment. Then I lay that fits perfectly on here. Now, I use a tape runner on all 4 sides here, but the first side that I do is either this end or this end. It doesn't matter which. I'll show you from here. But lay the tape right here and then stick that on so that it is going to fit, that when you pull your flaps in, it will fit perfectly and it will be over your window. Then I lift that and I take my little Aleene's glue and I go around each of these little scallops. I don't put a lot, just a little very thin line around. Then I take my finger and I go around to smooth it out. If you don't, you will get that on the cellophane after you lay it down. So then after you've done that, this is the point. I use the glue stick also around here on the outer sides, and then another piece of tape here. And sometimes I do it on all four sides. I said I did, but I also use the glue stick. Then that way, when you carefully smooth it down, just smooth it over. Then I take my little tool here that I wish I had many of, and I just start at the edge and I go around, making sure that it smooths out, but I don't get any glue on the outside here, because it can seep through if you get too much. You have to be very careful of the amount you use. So that takes care of that part. Now, for the picture that goes in the center, I have lots of scraps that I use, that I have left over from projects that I've done. So that's what, this template, I put thin washi tape on this 4 3/4 by 4 3/4 little thing that we used, template that we used for the cellophane there. And I made a frame so that it is as big, that frame, you will notice, is as big as that opening. Now here's the edge of it, but here's the edge of the opening of the circle. So with that, I can take, this is a leftover that I had from a project. This was a Studio 28E, I believe. And I can lay that on there, and I can cut it out exactly to fit inside or behind the cellophane. It will go there. That's, you've got to imagine that's already in there, and that'll go right inside, and it fits perfectly on in your envelope. And that's how you do that. Then, and I will show you on a couple of others here. I have this one and how you can easily frame it. Here's a whole sheet. That I had used for something else. I had cut off half of it, and I was able to use it for this. This one is one that I had left over, an Ephemera's Vintage Garden Kit, and that works perfect. And then I would just draw around the entire piece of acetate, but it would fit perfectly inside the window when you get it in there. And that's an easy way to do it. Here's another one that's Studio 28B there. And that fits perfectly when you get it cut out. Okay, then I take my paper that I have lost. Well, oh, here it is. And I back it. I always line my tags and journaling cards that I do, so I just do my glue stick all over that. I put it down there, cut it out, and then I have a lined back, and then I edge it with Vintage Photo, and then when I'm done, this will fit perfectly inside after I have cut this out, as you see, like that. Then I take this and I just fold it up here, and I very carefully, the flaps go on the outside. I glue, now make sure on this you will see that this flap, this doesn't go all the way up, so you have to just glue from there on down, and don't get too much or it'll ooze out, and you don't want that to happen. Just fold it over and do this. Now on these, when they're plain, you could do a number of things. You could cover it with paper, cut it the same size, use that as a template, or I just ink mine up on something like that. When you have your double-sided paper, as this is, then you don't have to worry about that because that is already backed. That's why I like to use the double-sided cardstock. So let's see, I don't want to forget anything that I've done so far. I do want to say I have not seen anyone do this by make their own, but I do know that I'm sure I am not the only one that has not thought of this. And so if I have not mentioned you, it's not because I didn't intentionally not mention you. I just didn't know it. So I can't be the only one. You know, I'm sure if you've seen it before, you have. But I have been asked to show how I do this, and that is how it's done. Now, when you add lace or anything to your ephemera, make sure you allow up here so that it fits into your envelope. I wanted to add that little fact too. So I think I have shown you everything about that. If there's any questions, please leave them below and I'll be sure to answer. I thank you for watching, and I do appreciate you taking the time, and I hope you'll be back. I've got more journals coming up that I'm ready to do videos on, and I will be posting those soon. So if you like this, please subscribe and put a like on it, and I will see you again shortly.